All right, let's jump right in. Have you ever really stopped to wonder how we know what the Earth's climate was like, say, thousands of years ago? Well, today, we're going to be climate detectives. We're on a mission to solve one of the biggest cold cases of all time, Earth's past.
No, seriously, think about that for a second. How in the world could we possibly know the temperature during the last ice age? It's a fantastic question, right? And believe me, the answer is even cooler.
I mean, there weren't any thermometers, no weather stations, forget about satellites. It sounds impossible. But here's the secret. The Earth, it kept a diary, and scientists have figured out how to read it. And that's exactly what this is, a massive climate cold case. We're cracking open the files on a field of science called paleoclimatology, which is basically the study of ancient climates. So what is paleoclimate, really? It's just the climate of the Earth way, way back in the geological past. You know, that long stretch of time before we had any of our modern instruments to measure things directly. It's kind of like a history book that's been torn apart, and we have to piece it together clue by tiny clue. So if we don't have instruments, and obviously no eyewitnesses, where do you even start looking for clues? Well, turns out they're hidden all around us, locked away in these incredible natural time capsules. And that is the absolute key to this whole thing, finding the clues the Earth itself left behind. Scientists really do become detectives, you know? They're hunting for physical evidence that's been perfectly preserved for thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of years. In the biz, this evidence has a name. It's called proxy data. And you can totally think of it like the forensic evidence in our investigation. It's not a direct temperature reading from a thermometer, right? It's an indirect clue from nature that lets scientists reconstruct what the climate was really like back then. All right, so let's meet the lineup. Our prime suspects, or our prime clues. We've got amazing ice cores drilled from the poles. We've got the stories told by tree rings. We have deep mud cores from the bottom of oceans and lakes, and even tiny microscopic fossilized pollen. Each one is a witness with a different part of the story to tell. Okay, we've got our evidence locker full. Now for the fun part, decoding it all. How exactly do scientists get these silent witnesses to talk? Let's start with clue number one, and this one is a real heavy hitter. We're talking about secrets that are literally frozen in time deep inside the ice. Yep, we're talking about ice cores, and trust me, they are unbelievably cool. So how on earth do you read an ice core? Well, first, scientists have to go to places like Greenland or Antarctica and drill super deep into these ancient ice sheets. They pull out these long, cylindrical cores of ice, but the real magic happens in the lab. In every single layer of that ice, they're looking for two main things: teeny tiny air bubbles that got trapped, and the chemical makeup of the ice itself, specifically something called isotopes. And get this, what they find is just mind-blowing. Those little bubbles, they are actual, literal samples of Earth's ancient atmosphere. We can directly measure gases like CO2 from like 800,000 years ago. It's insane. And the isotopes? Well, they work like a tiny frozen thermometer. See, when it's colder, it's harder for heavier water molecules to make it all the way to the poles. So by measuring the ratio of heavy to light water in the ice, scientists can calculate the temperature when that snow first fell. It's an incredibly precise record. Okay, let's move on to our next witness. This one's a bit more common, the testimony of trees. You know, every single year, a tree basically writes a little diary entry about the weather right into its trunk. And reading that diary is surprisingly simple. Think about it. In a good year, warm and wet, the tree grows fast and leaves a nice, thick, wide ring. But in a bad year, cold and dry, it barely grows, and you get a skinny, narrow ring. By lining up these patterns from tons of trees, scientists can build this super detailed timeline of a region's climate. All right, so we've looked at ice, we've looked at wood. Now for clue number three, we're getting a little messy. We're diving into the stories hidden in the mud at the bottom of lakes and oceans. So just like ice sheets, mud and dirt or sediment, it all builds up in layers over thousands of years. And buried in those layers, all sorts of amazing clues. You've got dust, volcanic ash from huge eruptions, the fossilized shells of tiny little creatures, and yep, even ancient pollen grains that show us what kinds of plants were growing nearby. And every single one of those things helps paint a picture. For example, if you find pollen from a plant that only grows in warm climates, well, You know it was warm. The types of tiny fossilized critters can tell you about the water temperature. Put it all together and you get a really detailed snapshot of what that specific place was like way back when. So, okay, we've got ice cores, tree rings, and sediment cores. But any good detective will tell you you never ever rely on just one piece of evidence. To really crack the case, you've got to bring all the clues together to build the big picture. And this is where it all clicks. See, each piece of evidence is good at something different. Ice cores give you that incredible long-term global picture. We're talking hundreds of thousands of years. Tree rings, they give you a super high-resolution year-by-year story, but just for one region. And the sediment cores fill in all the details about the local plants and animals. When you can line them all up and cross-reference them, that's when you build a case that's basically airtight. All right, so we've cracked the case. We know how to read Earth's diary. But so what, right? You're probably thinking, that's cool, but why does any of this ancient history matter for us today? Well, the biggest reason is context. It gives us a baseline. By knowing what the planet's natural rhythms are, the normal ups and downs over thousands of years, we can see just how different the changes happening right now really are. It helps us tell the difference between a natural cycle and the super fast warming we're seeing today. And it's not just about the present. Understanding the past actually gives us predictive power. It helps scientists build much better computer models to forecast what might be coming next. Things like how often we can expect major droughts, how strong storms might get, and how quickly sea levels could rise. And really, what it all boils down to is empowerment. This isn't just some abstract science thing for people in labs. This knowledge helps us make real-world decisions. It informs farming, how we manage our water, even how we build our cities. It gives all of us the information we need to make smarter choices for our planet and for each other. So there you have it. The Earth's history, its whole story, it's written right there for us to read. In the ice, in the trees, in the mud. It's a story of change, of natural cycles, and amazing resilience. And the question that story leaves us with is a pretty big one. What story are we going to write now?